America is the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here on the First TV, our special, The Redistricting Rumble. Today's special is about the census and redistricting. Now, there's a lot of things that we need to do to save our country. We have, think of it like different columns or different pillars upholding America. We have economic things. There's national security pillar. There's the domestic crime pillar. There's the pillar of virtue. And then there's also a column of politics and all the things that are necessary to keep America thriving. If we focus just on that political pillar, the single most important political thing that we need to do in our country, no question about it, because it would guarantee victory for decades, for 100 years, is redoing the census. Getting an accurate count of where people live and not counting illegal aliens in that census. I've been saying this for a couple of years now, so you can imagine the joy I felt when Donald Trump wrote this on his Truth Social account about the need to do exactly that. We need to redo the census, which is just counting Americans, because that count determines how many congressional seats every state has. And the number of congressional seats determines how many electoral college votes that state has for the presidential elections. If we do this accurately, an accurate count, not including illegal aliens, then the Democrats would have to win every single swing state in order to win the White House. So when you do a census, right, and they count the number of people, and they're like, okay, so California has 52 congressional seats. Why does California have 52 congressional seats? Because they have 39,500,000 people in it. But what if they don't? What if they don't have 39,500,000 people in it? Each district is 765,000 people. If the census is off by millions of votes, then we're talking about a lot of congressional seats that are not in California and instead are in Tennessee. Now, how do I know? How can I stand here before you today and talk about the census being wrong? How do I know that is wrong? They admitted it. The census was done in 2020 under Biden. 2022, the Commerce Department, which controls the census, they released this article with the headline, 2020 census undercounts in 6 states, overcounts in 8. Now let's look at the states that they undercounted in. They undercounted in Arkansas, Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, Texas. Those are all red states. Illinois is the only state they undercounted in, but just barely. Overcounted Delaware, Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New York, Rhode Island, whoops. The only red states they overcounted in were Ohio and Utah. This is their own analysis. Now, look at the states they overcounted in. The state they overcounted in the most, right up there with Hawaii, is Rhode Island. It turns out that the Commerce Secretary at the time of the census was the former governor of Rhode Island. Weird. And Rhode Island now still has 2, little old Rhode Island still has 2 congressional seats. If we have an accurate count, just based off the Biden census's own analysis, then the Democrats would have to win every swing state to win the presidency. Trump did not need to win every swing state to win the presidency. He did win every swing state. He didn't need to. But the Democrats would have to win every single one of them. And there's no way that would happen. First of all, there's no leader in the Democratic Party right now at all, right? So, but let's say like Newsom, he's trying to, weasel his way to the top. So let's say he gets it. You're telling me in 2028, the Newsom-Buttigieg ticket is going to completely swing the 2024 election results? So the Democrats go from losing every swing state to winning all of them? And then picking up Idaho or something like that? Like, there's no way. There's no way in 2028 the Democrats are going to win Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Virginia, and North Carolina, and Georgia. There's no chance. So that's why politically, we must give an accurate census. Now, there's 2 things happening. First, just an accurate count of where people live. Also, keep in mind, the census was done before COVID. There was a ton of migration of people throughout the country after COVID. So that's another reason why we should do another one. But I just want an accurate count of where people are, what states they live in, and not count illegal aliens. So this is Democrats. You want to argue, like Go ahead. If Democrats want to say, no, we demand an inaccurate count and we must count people of other countries. Go ahead. You guys go make that argument. That's great. Democrats are complaining now that the redistricting is unfair. We'll get to redistricting in a minute here. But we have this chart here. These are blue states. These are, the blue line is the popular vote that Kamala Harris got. And the green line is the representation that Democrats have in that state for congressional seats. So you have states where 40, 50, 60% of the vote is Harris, but they have 100% of the congressional representative. Let me flip it around. You have states where 40%, 50% of the vote is for Republicans, but Republicans have no congressional seats. This all has to change. But let's table redistricting for just a little bit here. Let's talk about the constitutionality of redoing the census. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. It says, the actual enumeration shall be made within 3 years after the first meeting of the Congress. Okay, so like right when we start here, we gotta count the number of people right away, 1788. And, here's what's relevant to us, and within every subsequent term of 10 years. Within every 10 years. Is 5 years within 10 years? We last did it 5 years ago. Is 5 years within 10? Of course. So can we redo the census? Yes. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to wait exactly 10 years. There's nothing in the Constitution that says you have to do it in a year that ends in 0. It just says you got to do it within 10 years, and 5 is within 10. Now let's give another scenario where that would be applicable. Let's say the Democrats win. Let's say we don't do this and the Democrats win in 2028. And so it's time to redo the census in 2030. And Gavin Newsom says, you know what, let's not do the census. It would hurt us politically. And they decide, you know what, let's skip it. Let's do the census in 2033 after the next election. That would be unconstitutional because that would not be within 10 years. That would be longer than 10 years. That would be outside of 10 years. You can't do that. So 15 years is not within. 5 years is. It's so obvious that we are allowed to redo a census. In a perfect world, we do the census every year. Like, why even wait 10? Like, our founders, that was like the max they gave. You got to do it at least every 10 years, guys. In classic government, we wait till the very last minute. Maybe our founders would have preferred every 2 years or 4 years. Maybe even 5 years is too long of a time. So, of course, we can redo the census. The second issue, constitutionally, is a bit trickier, and we'll talk to a wonderful guest about this coming up in a little bit who can speak even deeper to it. But it's the question of who you count. So can we do it with less than 10 years? Yes, of course. But who do you count? Illegal aliens? So the question is, what is a whole person? So let's read, this is the beginning of that clause of the Constitution I just read. It says, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states, which may be included within this union, according to their respective numbers. There you go. We're counting, and that's how many Congress people we figure out. Which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons. Okay, what does that mean? Including those bound to service for a term of 10 years, excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. Okay, so we got to do this fast. This is about how different categories of people are counted. First, indentured servants, counted. If you're an indentured servant, you're counted in the census. If you're an Indian, not counted. If you're a slave, 3/5 of a person. Now, the 3/5 compromise, one of my favorite points to make. I'll do it in 60 seconds. Every kid has been told, including you and me, when middle school, how horrible it was that Americans only counted slaves as 3/5 of a person. Oh, look how racist they were. They thought that slaves weren't fully human. They only count them as 3/5 because they're black. Wrong. The Northerners wanted this because the Southerners wanted slaves to count as a full person so that the South could get more congressional apportionments. Southerners wanted slaves counted as full persons so that they could get more people counted so that they could get more congressional votes to keep slavery. The Northerners wanted slaves not counted, not because they didn't think slaves were people, but for the exact opposite reason that the Southerners, they wanted the South to have less representation so that the North could have more so they could end slavery and free the slaves. If the Southerners had their way, a slave would have counted as 10 people. just so they could get more congressional apportionment and continue slavery. And the Northerners didn't want them to count at all so that they could eliminate slavery. We were taught that completely backwards in middle school and high school. But the Democrats are doing the same thing today with illegals. They want illegals to be counted so that as full persons, so that they in blue states get more congressional representation and can usher in amnesty, among other things. We want we want illegals to be deported. But in the meantime, we want them not counted as persons so that they don't count towards congressional apportionment. Because why would they count towards congressional apportionment if they can't vote? Now, the guys who wrote the Constitution, they didn't talk about illegal aliens, but what do you think? Thomas Jefferson intended foreigners to count when it comes towards congressional apportionment? It doesn't make any sense at all. There's a bunch of British people here illegally. You think Thomas Jefferson would be like, oh yeah, we definitely got to count them so that the states have the right. No, that's ridiculous. Of course they wouldn't have wanted that. It needs to stop. Don't count illegal aliens in the census, because the census is about congressional apportionment and illegal aliens can't even vote. Now, we do an accurate vote. We do a vote with a count, so we do an accurate count. Then we do a count without illegal aliens. Third step, redistrict. We'll talk to Sean Spicer in just a minute all about this, but a quick history. Gerrymandering started in 1812. It's nothing new. Named after this guy, Elbridge Gerry. And I think it was pronounced actually Gary, but we call it gerrymandering now. He was in Massachusetts, and he had a district made to protect him. And the press at the time said it looked like a salamander. So that's why it's called gerrymandering. And they have a political cartoon from back in the day here. It's like, this is how they made fun of it. But the point is, this is nothing new. And the left is furious about Texas doing this because now we're finally doing it. The blue states have been doing, there's the seat. The blue states have been doing this forever. I think all the blue states are gerrymandered out of control. J.D. Vance had some fact the other day, and we'll ask Sean Spicer about it, but he said there's 5 Democrat states that had 45% Republican voters, but only 18% Republican congressmen. That's already in the blue states. So it's our turn to play the game. And us playing the game is just accuracy. We want an accurate census, only counting citizens, and we want to redraw the lines. And if we do that accurately, the Democrats will never win again. We have Sean Spicer coming up next, then someone from the Center for Immigration Studies about the constitutionality of not counting legal aliens in the census. I cannot stress this enough, and it's so great to hear the president agree. This is the single most important political thing we can do if you want conservatives and MAGA and Republicans to win for the next 100 years. This must be done immediately. Sean Spicer next, right here on the First TV.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F. Common Cause, a nonpartisan government watchdog, even says your map, and I'm going to quote, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction. The reality is that the violation of people's voting rights is what Texas is attempting to do. That's what's wrong with their efforts right now. And the fact that the president of the United States knows it and nevertheless is asking them to do it. That is what's wrong with what we're seeing right now. Democracy is at stake.
All right. The great Sean Spicer is here. Sean Spicer Show, Sean Spicer on Twitter, Sean Spicer everywhere. Sean, how are you, brother?
I'm great. I love that clip, though. That may be one of my favorite political clips of all time.
Say more. Why?
Well, so let's be clear. The Department of Justice, voting rights, the Civil Rights Division, told Texas that their current map was in violation of the Voting Rights Act. So Texas said, great, we'll redistrict it. Now, no one has to think that they're going to be dumb about doing it. They're going to maximize it politically, like every other state has done since Elbridge Gerry back in his days in Massachusetts. So let's look at what happened. Texas Democrats said, no, we don't want to do that. So we're going to prevent the state of Texas from getting a quorum in our legislature, and we will flee the state, as we've done before, so that the Texas House of Representatives cannot do what the Department of Justice said that they would do. So they flee to political sanctuary cities, Chicago, Boston, New York, San Francisco, etc., in states that have maximized political gerrymandering, like Illinois, like Maryland, like Massachusetts. Now, just to give you a hint, Massachusetts is run by Governor Maura Healey, who said, I'm going to do the same thing. Massachusetts has 9 members of Congress. Mike, do you know how many are Republican?
Zero.
Zero. So they didn't really seem to care. And I'm from New England. It may not be the biggest Republican state, but they don't have 0 Republicans. Maryland redistricted their entire state so that there's only 1 Republican left. Illinois, where J.B. Pritzker, that governor that you just played, they've completely partisan redistricted their state. To Kristen Welker's credit, and I generally don't give credit to anyone on NBC or Kristen Welker, she at least read that report that says these guys are the epitome of what political gerrymandering is. And what did J.B. Pritzker said? But that's not what I'm talking about. Well, wait a second. If it's good for the goose, why is it not good for the gander? Democrats led the way in doing this, and they're just pissed that Republicans are doing somewhat of what they did.
Yep. Why do you think the Republicans are now finally getting in this game, and even now in the red states even, finally playing?
It's a variety of reasons, Mike. It's a great question because Democrats have been doing this better than we have. But it's also changing demographics. More people are moving to Texas because they're tired of the woke DEI policies. And so at some point, Texas says, well, we might as well take advantage of this. Florida did it really well. But remember, Mike, here's the one thing that you've got to keep in mind. So if you're a member of Congress and you have a 65, 70% district that favors your party, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because California faced this in the 2000 redistricting cycle. They don't want to go home. They don't want to campaign. They don't want to have it. So these members of Congress are kind of like, hey, I'd like my 70% district so I don't actually have to, talk to people, go home, do my job. So what happens is, in order to maximize these, you might have to take a 70% seat and make it 60 so you can get more. And that's what Texas is doing. They're squeezing these districts so they can get 5 additional Republican-leaning districts. But they do so, in some cases, at the peril of a Republican member of Congress that might have a 70% district that's going to have a 60 or 62, meaning they might actually have to go home. They might have to talk to constituents. They might actually have to be responsive. And they don't like that. So the reason that, to your question, why this isn't maximized is that some of these states that are technically majority Republican are like, hey, we're good with where things are. We'd rather not maximize the state because then that means I have to do a little bit more work.
Great point. On the racial aspect of this, because you went back to the Department of Justice ruling, which is the Supreme Court ruling on this. They got you coming and going, because let's say you have a bunch of black people in this district and you put them all in one district. Well, then you're accused of packing. But if you take this black area and you cut it up into a bunch of districts, then you're accused of, what do they call it, cutting or slicing or something. So you can't win. Like what should one do then?
Well, there's 2 things that are about to happen. The Supreme Court's going to vote on the Voting Rights Act and whether that's legal. Because remember, they call them majority-minority districts, meaning that a majority of the people in the congressional district are minorities. Now, keep in mind, generally speaking, this applies to black Democrats. Think about a Byron Donalds in Florida. He represents a majority white district. Burgess Owens in Utah, majority white district. On the Republican side, this isn't a problem. We treat everybody equally. They run in a primary. The best person wins. On the Democrat side, that's what they do. They create majority-minority districts so that that can happen. It's almost like they don't want the competition. And the Department of Justice is actually looking at this and saying, can you gerrymander specifically on the issue of race? Because in theory, right, most districts have a mix of people, black, white, Hispanic, etc., Asian. And yet here we are in the case of these Democrat districts where they're literally creating not only a Democrat district, but one that would 99% of the time result in a black Democrat representing it. And the Department of Justice is saying, is that really what we were supposed to be doing, is guaranteeing outcome in that way?
Okay, here, I got a lot of little questions, but here's my big question. I'm getting this sense of like, all right, here's how it's always been done. Now the Republicans are playing the game. And now Gavin Newsom and Massachusetts, New York, they're like, now we're going to squeeze our states even more. And J.D. Vance, like, oh, you can only squeeze them still so much. There's not much juice left in that squeeze. Okay, so now we got this crazy battle. And let's say it keeps going to this extreme where now Texas is like Massachusetts with no Democrat seats, right? And we keep doing this. It's just a mess. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, whoa, what should they look like? Like if an alien came in from outer space and was only motivated by what is just and pure, what did our founding fathers, for instance, like what was their vision of how these lines should be drawn?
Well, before I get to that, let me just say one quick thing. Remember, on the Republican side, whether it's Texas, Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, technically New Hampshire, and Florida, the Republican governor and the legislature have free reign to do all this. I don't think you're going to see anything beyond maybe Texas or Missouri do it. On the Democratic side, it's a lot of bluster. So J.B. Pritzker and Gretchen Whitmer and a couple other people are talking about doing it. Even Gavin Newsom, he has to actually go to his own voters and get permission in a special election because they put a state constitutional amendment in place about redistricting. So Gavin's talking a good game, but it would have to go in front of California voters before anything ever happens. Same thing in New York. So keep in mind, in those Democratic states, most of them have squeezed that juice already, and they would have to get special permission from their voters to try again. That's very different than the states that Republicans control and how they can handle it. To your question about the framers, I mean, look, it's in the eye of the beholders. I think if you really went back in time, they would argue that they would like it more geographically to make sense. So in other words, if you look at, I live in the 8th Congressional District of Virginia. We have made that district so gerrymandered. There's like this bridge, they call it the land bridge into McLean, just to get different aspects of Democratic voters. In Maryland, as I mentioned, they've created one single district for Andy Harris, and they've kind of done it in a very, very like snaky type of way to pull in, you know. I think the framers would argue, and I'm taking some liberties here, that they would rather make it more geographically smart. So you have all of a city, all of a county, so that that representative is representing all of, say, X county or Y city, as opposed to now where you could take a major city, and Texas is going to be a case like this. We'll carve up the city of Austin in like 5 different ways. So I think the framers would argue, hey, it would be better to have all of Austin represented by one member of Congress, or all of, you know, X county, Tarrant County, or something like that. But what's happened though is that we've gotten more data and more sophistication. We've been able to say we're going to go get that neighborhood or that street in Tarrant County, pull it out and combine it with this other thing. I think the framers probably would have a problem with that, but I would argue that some probably would say, great, good for you. You know, if you control the state legislature, to the winner goes the prizes. And so I don't know that there'd be a single view of the framers.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear, like, I'm okay with the answer now being, but whatever, we're going to win. like I'm happy to now finally be playing the game.
And I'm with you on this, because my view is you win the state legislature if you have the ability to do it. They would, the other side, you know, it's funny. I literally, you played that clip of Kirsten Welker. The Democrats literally did this for years, Illinois, Massachusetts, and now suddenly Republicans are attacking democracy. I'm sorry, like, it is mind-blowing that it's like my show and Mike Slater that are covering this and no one else. It is mind-blowing. If it was bad for democracy then, you heard J.B. Pritzker. He couldn't answer the question. Why is it different? Oh, because it's, Texas. It's bigger.
Mid-election cycle.
Yeah, they're in cycle. They one-upped us. I mean, there's no reason. They've done it. I'm with you. To the winner goes the spoils. I'm sorry. You get the prizes. You win. And if you really think that's that big of a deal, then go win the Texas legislature and redo it your way. But they do it to the Republicans every day of the week. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say we play the game and we do it right and we go all in. Because I know J.D. Vance and a bunch of other White House guys met with the lawmakers in Indiana to try to get another 1 or 2 votes there. Right? So they're like playing offense, this White House is here. How many more votes are we talking about here? And how many electoral college votes are we talking about?
Well, so that's a great question. I mean, to your point, like you squeeze 5 more out of Texas, it's 5 more. I mean, the electoral college is set, right? So it's by the number of 2 senators for every state and then the number of that. So you usually, in every state but 2, Maine and Nebraska, you get all of the electoral votes. Nebraska and Maine split theirs by electoral college. So in Texas, it's not going to change the outcome of the Electoral College because a Republican would always get Texas, regardless of whether the split among the delegation is, say, 16-13 or 15-14, you're still going to get it. But it's a bigger deal. I mean, to your point about maximizing this, as I said, in Florida, you could probably squeeze out 2 to 3 more. In New Hampshire, you could squeeze 1 more. Missouri, 1 or 2. Indiana, probably 2. I just don't think it's going to happen, okay? I think in Texas, you will get the 5. Indiana, I think, would be the only other state that's potentially, maybe Missouri, actually. So I think realistically, you're talking about 5, maybe 6 or 7 at most. But when you have a 3-seat majority in the House, getting an extra 5, not a bad deal.
No, and I guess my last question for you, I guess the question I asked was also maybe more of a census question. Like if we redo the census and we don't count illegal aliens.
Right.
That's the next.
Oh, that's huge.
Comment on that. How many votes are we talking about there?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. There are studies that suggest 20 to 25 seats, right? And just so people understand this, because the way the law currently works is we count bodies, not citizens. So if you can flood all these people into San Francisco or San Diego and California, suddenly California gets more members of Congress because there are more bodies. Now, I want to be clear on something because I had Ken Cuccinelli on my show the other day, who's a former attorney general in Virginia and leading one of these efforts. We don't count tourists. If you're in this country visiting or a student, you don't get counted. If you're a diplomat, you don't get counted. But for some reason, if you're illegally in this country, we count you. That's insane. So it benefits Democrats. They know it. They flood the zone. And of course, where do they largely go? California or certain areas of Texas. That then determines how many bodies are in that area, which is important when it comes to counting, how many congressional. That's your electoral college question. Because now you've upped California to 52 states instead of seats as opposed to probably 48. So this is critical what President Trump is talking about, and it's really important. And as I said, it should make sense. Why, if you don't count diplomats, if you don't count tourists, if you don't count students, do you suddenly count illegal aliens? That's the line you draw?
With Howard Lutnick now in charge of the Commerce Department and the Census, do you think this could get done before the 2028 election?
Absolutely. No, probably before the next presidential. I don't know that you could pull it off before then. But I think it's on track to help us in the next, not maybe 2028, 2026, but 2028.
2028, yeah, that's the one I was asking about. Can it get done by 2028?
Absolutely.
Oh, love it. Sean Spicer Show, Sean Spicer on Twitter, Sean Spicer right here on the First TV. Sean, you're the man. Appreciate you.
You bet, Mike. Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll talk about the Center for Immigration Studies on that counting of illegal aliens. It's next right here on the First TV.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
That's so good. She's a congresswoman out of Brooklyn, I think. So good. Mark Krikorian is here giving away the game. Mark Krikorian, he's the executive director of the wonderful Center for Immigration Studies. Mr. Krikorian, how are you, sir?
Okay, very well. Glad to be here.
So we're talking about the census and redoing the census. And can we redo it in less than 10-year period? I think that's absolutely slam dunk. Of course, it says within 10 years. But maybe the more complicated part is who we count. Is it constitutional to not count illegal aliens in a census?
The Constitution says the whole number of persons have to be counted. So we do have to count everybody, and I think we should. The question is, do we include people who aren't citizens when we figure how House of Representatives seats are going to be distributed? In other words, there's a difference between, do you count illegal immigrants and other non-citizens on the one hand? And the answer there is yes, we do need to count them. The Constitution says it, and we should anyway, because we want to know who's here. But the other question is, should we separate out either illegals specifically or non-citizens overall? Should we separate them out when we do the calculations for deciding how many congressmen each state gets and how many state representatives the different parts of within the states get too. So it affects both things when you include non-citizens.
What is your argument as to why we should not count illegal aliens towards representation?
Well, I mean, look, why are illegal immigrants, why would they be having representation in Congress? Because that's what we're talking about here. Each House district is supposed to have roughly the same number of people. So now it's 700 plus thousand, something like that. It's never exact because some states only have one seat, and so it doesn't matter what population they have. It's a complicated math problem, but the fact remains that they are in effect constituents of congressmen, even though they can't vote. And for the most part, illegal immigrants don't vote, but they nonetheless have effective representation in Congress, which is crazy. Representation in Congress should be based on people who are American citizens.
Have I read accurately that with some analysis that have been done, that if we did not count illegal aliens, and your group is one of the most trustworthy groups on how many illegal aliens we even have here, but that it's possible that the blue states could lose 10, maybe 11 congressional seats and electoral college votes?
That's when you count all of them. If you only count illegals, the effect isn't as big as some people think because Texas has a lot of illegal aliens too. You know what I mean? So you end up California and Texas, in a sense, almost kind of balancing each other out. So when we looked at the 2020 census, it's hard to project to the future, but we did it for the last census. It was only a couple of seats changed because of illegals specifically. But when you count all non-citizens, it ended up being more like 17 seats. And again, that's mostly from blue states, from Democratic states, because other than Texas and Florida, that immigrants are going to blue states.
Okay. What is the Supreme Court precedent on this question? And is there any path towards this going to the Supreme Court?
There's been a number of lawsuits over the years, leading up to various censuses. There was one in 1980, there was one in 1990. And what's happened is the Supreme Court has basically punted and said that the people suing, and in some cases it was actually members of the House of Representatives, didn't have what they call standing. In other words, they didn't have a basis to bring the lawsuit, because you can't bring a lawsuit just because you don't like something. There has to be some specific harm done to you that gives you the right to sue. And so in the past, what's happened is the Supreme Court said, well, nobody basically has the right to sue, and so we're not even really going to decide on the substance of the issue. Things have changed, though. This is a different Supreme Court. And I think it's entirely possible if a lawsuit were brought by, for instance, members of Congress or by a state that lost representation, in other words, they lost a seat in Congress, they might be able to get standing, and then we would see what the Supreme Court would decide.
I was going to ask you, the standing thing can be very frustrating sometimes. Who would have standing in something like this?
That's a good question. Like I said, maybe a member of Congress, because a member of the House of Representatives specifically, because the makeup of the body that he is elected to would change one way or the other. And so his influence could decline or potentially even increase. I don't know, depending. So, and the other thing is the state. In other words, the attorney general of a state that loses out because they don't have,
Yes.
I think Indiana, we calculated, was one of the places that lost a seat or maybe didn't gain a seat. We have on our website, we have a report where we break this all out called Tilting the Balance, again, based on the 2020 census. And so maybe the state, attorney general of the state could say, look, our state lost a member in the House of Representatives because of this, and that gives us standing to sue. Hasn't worked in the past, but, things have changed.
Do you think what authority do you think the president has to declare that we're not going to count illegal aliens? And could that happen, you think, before and quickly enough for the 2028 election?
No, I don't think it could happen for the 2028 election because it would require retooling the census, because you can't just say, okay, well, these people look like they're probably not citizens, so we're not going to count them. In fact, what for the 2020 census, the first Trump administration, they tried to have a citizenship question in the census, which has been there before. We've had many times where we've had a question that says, are you a citizen of the United States, yes or no? Doesn't ask, are you illegal? None of that stuff. Just yes or no, are you a citizen? You would have to have something like that again, because you need to have individualized numbers. You can't just say, well, we think about 5% of the people here are, non-citizens, so we're going to kind of guesstimate it. The census is what they call an enumeration of the total population. So for the 2030 census, we could do this. And as a practical matter, there's no way you can do a census in, a year and a half. I mean, it's enormous. It's like invading D-Day to the 10th power. You have to hire thousands of people. It's a big deal. So the realistic thing is fix the way we're going to do the 2030 census now.
Mark Krikorian, Executive Director of the wonderful Center for Immigration Studies, the most reputable, perfect data that you can make, possibly, is at the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, thanks for leading the charge there.
Thank you.
Grateful for you. I want to come back with our final thought. I want to push back on that last point, though. I believe it can be done this quickly. This is Trump's whole thing. We did not play the clip, but we played on the radio show before. Howard Lutnick, who's he's the Commerce Secretary in charge of the census. He's talked about getting the post office involved. Remember, there was a clip right when he took over. He's like, hey, we got the post office. Why are we hiring all these tens of thousands of census people to come out? That costs a ton of money. We have these post people who already go to people's doors, just knock on the doors, say how many people are here. We can do this. I think we can do it. Can we do it quickly the old way? No. But can there be a new way that could be done quicker by 2028? I believe it's possible. We have our Politics by Faith segment coming up next, right here on Redistricting Rumble. Welcome back to our special Redistricting Rumble. We'll end with our Politics by Faith segment here. We'll run this through the Bible here because everything's in the Bible. So Trump was asked the other day about redistricting. And, if Texas redistricts, Texas redistricts, then California's going to redistrict, and New York's going to redistrict, and it's going to open up this huge can of worms, and should we still do it? Here's what the president said.
If Texas redrawing their congressional map would get you 5 safe red seats, means that California, New York, Illinois, and Maryland are all going to redraw their maps to add safe.
Well, they'll do it anyway.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, they'll do it anyway. Why? If we stop over there, they would have done it anyway.
Yeah, they'll do it anyway. This has been a defining aspect of Trump 2.0, this new Trump administration. And that is just do the right thing and do not care what your enemies will say about you, because they'll say it anyway, no matter what. So you might as well do the right thing. In the first Trump term, there was a lot of trying to figure out what the opposition will say and how they'll respond. There was a lot of, don't give them the ammo. This real loser attitude. Don't do this because then they'll call you this mean word and we don't want that to happen. You'll lose the hearts and minds of the media and all this stuff. We better not do that. So let's not deport too many people because then they'll call you a Nazi. And it turns out that they'll call them a Nazi no matter what. They'll throw you in prison even if you don't commit any crimes. They'll try to murder you no matter what you do. So Trump 2.0 has come to this realization, to heck with the enemy. We're just going to do the right thing. And we're going to go fast. And we're not going to let the devil get a foothold in any of the good things that we want to do. Now, of course, this isn't a pass for any president to do the wrong thing. But the lesson here is for all of us who might be struggling with, what decision should I make? This is such a tricky thing. I don't know what to do. Should I lie? Should I fib? Should I just take this? Should I steal this? Should I smudge this number here? Should I do this little tiny thing that I know is wrong? And when we're in this situation, we're so desperately searching for validation or some justification that we can use to excuse our behavior and make us feel good about this thing that we actually feel bad about doing, and we ask for advice, but really we're just looking for one person to be like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Trump's 2.0, his advice is just do the right thing. Oh, but what if that could be bad, and if I do this thing that maybe is a little immoral, like I think it'll be better? Trump says, no, do the right thing. Just do it. Oh, but what if I do this but then this thing happens, or these people think that about me? No, just do the right thing, and do the right thing now. The Bible's very clear about this. James 4:17. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. You know the right thing to do. Just do it, and do it now. Don't wait. All the time that you wait to do the right thing, that is Satan's domain. So you do the right thing, you do it now. Then you keep doing the right thing. Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So do the right thing now, as it says in James, and then don't stop doing the right thing. And it's not just some things, it's all the things, everything you do. Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So do it now, do it always, do it in all things. And even if bad people want to do bad things because of you or to you, no matter what it is you do, don't stop. 1 Thessalonians 5:15, see that no one repays anyone evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to everyone. So do the right thing now, keep doing the right thing in everything you do, and don't let bad people stop you from doing the right thing. Just do that and then leave everything else up to God. God will handle all of it. He'll sort it all out. That's what we're called to do. We're called to do the right thing. That's it. There's no need to connive. There's no need to conspire. There's no need to scheme. Just do the right thing. We'll see where the chips fall, then reevaluate, and we'll just keep doing the right thing. No matter what happens, just keep doing the right thing. No matter what wicked people do to us in response, doesn't matter. We're just going to keep doing the right thing. Don't pay any mind to the haters and the losers. Now, often people are not impressed when you quote scripture. So I'll quote another old thing. This is Shakespeare. All's well that ends well. His play from 1623. The famous line is, love all is advice for life. Love all, trust a few, do wrong to none. Be able for thine enemy rather in power than use, and keep thy friend under thy own life's key. So modern translation of that would be, love everyone, only trust a few people, do wrong to no one. Okay, that's easy. But here's a tricky line. Be able for thine enemy rather in power than use. What does that mean? That means you should be able to match up against your enemy. All right, so be strong enough, be powerful enough, be in a position, be ready to match up and defeat your enemy. But as a deterrence to violence. Right? Rather in power than in use means be strong enough where you are a deterrent to the wicked people doing bad things to you. And then keep your friends as close as possible. Do those things, you'll be fine. Just do the right thing, keep doing it, don't stop doing it, and don't let anyone convince you otherwise. It's my podcast, Politics by Faith. We do this every day. Take the news of the day, find the principle in it, and it's all there. It's all there in the Bible, always, everything is there. There's nothing new under the sun. And the Bible will show us the way. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, Politics by Faith, we do one pretty much every day. It's a great way to check out the news and feel good at the end of it. Hopefully get some clarity and wisdom. Politics by Faith, wherever you listen to podcasts. Mike Slater, The First TV. Spread the word.